couple sessions the past week, we're back in the gains making category, which is where we want to be. And it is fully attributable to switching from training, hey dude, every other day, which I have been doing for years, the past couple years, successfully. Dropping that and adding an additional rest day in there. So 2 days rest in between each arm session is leading to way better growth right now. And the point being is that something that works really well at one point in your training journey may not continue to work well forever. And I think that this is the main issue, in my opinion, with the science-based lifting approach. There is no one fixed optimal answer. If you're a brand new beginner, it's a great place to start. You're not going to go wrong. But quickly, after you get through your newbie gains, you make some progress, you'll hit a plateau if you continue to hold on to this perspective. And a better way to go is to let go that there's going to be one best, most effective, efficient way to train forever, and just start experimenting and listen to how your body responds. And let's look at Andrei Smayev as an example. Okay, 26-inch arms, pretty hard to argue with. Maybe he's got good results. He's blasting hella gear, or good genetics. But still, come on, man. You got to pull something from him. I was watching this video and he's saying, because he's doing this arm training where he just does these short reps, kind of right in the middle of the range of motion, fast tempo, high reps, like 20, 30 reps, keeps the weight the same throughout the workout, and he wants to get like 500 reps for his biceps. So if he starts to fatigue as the session goes on, he just uses a longer rest time. And the key point he's saying is right now, this is the thing that's leading to additional growth, given that my arms are already 25 inches. And he alludes to the point that he used to focus on gaining strength in a regular range of motion, in a more traditional way of training. But he got to a point, 22 or 23 inch arms or something, where that stopped working. And the next evolution of what he needed to do to create more stress, the muscle doesn't understand whether you're training optimally in a bicep exercise with your elbows behind your freaking body or not. It just understands if this is a increased foreign stress that I need to respond to by growing or not. And the latest methodology, which he's not attached to, which he will then evolve and change in the future, is this method, which looks wacky and suboptimal. But the point is that as you see additional progress, you have to keep trying new and different things to create a new, more demanding stress. I'll give you an example of myself. I was stuck at about 17 and a half inches for like 6 months, maybe a year. And the one change that I made that started to drive growth and get me up to 18 inches was to go from doing slow controlled eccentrics, which I had been doing for like the past year and not really focusing that much on moving tons of weight, to faster, explosive tempo. I immediately started gaining strength. And at that exact moment, that led to a bunch of extra growth and got me up to 18 inches. But, I come on YouTube or social media and say that, and it was, this guy doesn't understand that you're not training optimally. He's like not even milking the eccentric, because people are looking at it as if there's one fixed best way to do something. And Mike Israetel is programmed into you that you have to milk the eccentric. And the problem is there's not one best exact way that you should train forever for everyone at all. And I've just been reminded of this in my own journey over and over again. And even something like training with a higher frequency, which led to a lot of results in the past, and experimented by reducing that frequency, and it seemed to lead to worse results. And my body was able to recover from training every other day. Over the past 6 months to a year, my body's been screaming at me that this is not going to work moving forward. And as soon as I back off and add an extra day of rest in, I see more growth. You can't be attached to any one specific thing. And I think, there are the fundamentals of you got to train hard, you got to be consistent, and you got to evolve and progress your training in some way, shape, or form. And that's it. But within that, there's no exact rules. And I made this arm training documentary, which you could go and watch, which I kind of outline my training and how it evolves from, starting out with 13-inch arms all the way up to 18-inch arms, and each kind of progression, things tweak, adjust, evolve, morph, and change. And that's only through experimenting. And so I just think that, a lot of the science-based lifting stuff that is very popular, and I know right now there's a lot of resistance, but if you're an original subscriber, you'll know that in the past I was kind of before the movement. There's a little more momentum behind, science-based stuff is kind of BS. But when I was making videos a year ago, I was taking a lot of heat, man. People were getting really mad. I was like, this does not add up with my experience at all. And I think if you want to see more results and you want to continue to push your physique to grow more, you need to not adopt that methodology. And I think at the end of the day, it's just people trying to use science to get more views to make money to sell their programs. That's really what it is. And you as the lifter, this is not the truth. They're not telling you the truth. And somebody like Andrei Smayev, he's actually just telling you, if you're able to see and listen, he's telling you the truth of the process of what's led to these exceptional results. And it's not an answer people like, because it's not definitive. And the fact that his current methodology is so wacky and so suboptimal, but for him right now, having 25-inch arms, he has to do something like this to stimulate stress. And he's always experimenting and trying new stuff. Something doesn't work, he changes it. Try this, try that, more reps, less reps. See how my body responds. You're going to get way more out of your results if you focus on that, I think. And I just think it's at this point, I watched this Jeremy Ethier video, got me to click. I'm never going to watch another one of his videos again. It's just too negative for me. I get so frustrated. And they're basically showing that, the stretch based training is just as effective as, short, contracted phase of the training, the squeeze. What's more important, stretch or squeeze? Turns out they're the same. Go, of course. Wow, shocking result. And the next thing he's going to analyze is whether the, seated rows or lat pull downs are more effective and which exercise you should do. What answer are we looking for? That lat pull downs are more effective and therefore we don't do seated rows? Just stop. Please stop with this, because there's no right answer. You're looking for an answer that doesn't exist. Because both exercises are going to be effective, but maybe at one point in time, lat pull downs with a slow eccentric and a lighter weight and high rep range is going to be what allows you to progress and create more stimulus for your muscles. And then once your body adapts to that, 6 to 12 months later, maybe focusing on the seated row, a different movement with heavier weight and faster tempo leads to additional results. You know what I mean? There's no point in trying to analyze one exercise versus, because I tried to generally stop making these reaction type videos, but it's just when everyone pops into my sphere, and he got me with this thumbnail. He's like, Mike Israetel and Jeff Nippert are wrong, and I was like, okay. And then it's just like, oh my God, here we go again. And the manipulation to be like, this is actually good, and science, what we're doing, me and Jeff studying this stuff, is actually good, even though we proved everything we were preaching about stretch-based training is actually wrong. I'm like, what is this? This is like a little slip to the side, and they just keep maneuvering and finagling you, and then sign up for my app where the AI version of me will train you. What are you talking about? I'm sounding like a freaking hater, but it's frustrating because I've been through that experience myself when I was earlier into the journey, and you just start to realize it's just a bunch of BS. And you're just nitpicking about these little details that don't really matter. And yet people make their whole freaking content about those details. So, Jeff will say, well, we actually have found out that it's all about consistency and training hard and progressive overload in some way. And these are just the last little details. But then 95% of your channel is about these details. And so it's all you talk about. So people end up thinking this stuff is more important. And people get fixated on if you're saying the stretch is important and a slow eccentric is important, and a year or two ago, that's what all the science guys are talking about. Fast forward 2 years later, it turns out none of that's actually accurate. Like, how many people were foregoing movements that bias the contraction, and how many people were foregoing using a faster tempo? A ton, millions. Based off of what? It's not true, because there's never going to be one simple fixed best way to train. It doesn't exist. So stop looking for it and stop watching that content if you want better results. It's just as simple as that. It's not there to help you actually find ways to get more gains. It's not. It's there to sell you this illusion that you want to hear, that there is one best fixed way to do it, and we're going to keep using science to isolate whether you should do a seated row or lat pull down, or to isolate what part of the range of motion is the most important, the stretch versus the contraction, and we're going to keep nitpicking these tiny details that there's no best answer for, and you're going to have a thirst and desire for that, and in certain periods of time we're going to present as if science has proven this and that, and you're going to keep eating it up and buying the freaking apps. And they become millionaires and you make no gains. Sorry. That's just the truth, man. So I think if you just embrace that, and if you don't believe me, then look at Andrei Smayev, man. He's the freaking most giant guy on earth. Like, how are you going to argue with that? You know, that's not optimal. It's not science-based. And it doesn't mean that you right now should start doing his little middle reps, short reps with fast explosive time. What you should take from that is, different things work at different times. Ultimately, I need to create stress and stimulus on the muscle to force it to adapt and grow. And what that's going to look like is going to evolve as I gain strength and as I build more muscle. So what works for me in the beginning, 3 years later, I've added 30 pounds of muscle and I'm much stronger. The next thing I'm going to need to do to force more growth is going to change some. And the amount of sets I'm going to do in the rep range and the exercise is going to shift. Certain exercises will become better at certain points, certain amounts of volume. Like, you got to realize that as I'm building and growing, my body needs new stimulus. I always have to show up and be consistent. I have to train hard, push myself, and I have to progress my training in some way, shape, or form. But how that progression works evolves as you gain strength and build muscle, right? I think it's as simple as that. And that's why it's so confusing for most people. And there's so much conflicting information out there, is because somebody who's 12 years in and has put on 50 pounds of muscle, what's working for them right now could be slightly different than what worked for them at the beginning. And if you're just starting out and you listen to him and he says one thing, and then someone else who's only 5 years in and has only built 30 pounds of muscle, their truth is like, I have to focus on low volume training right now. This is what my body is responding to. Whereas the guy who's more experienced is like, I do a little bit higher sets. Now you're like, what's the truth? What do I do? Because there's not one truth. There's not one answer. There isn't. So you should stop looking for it. You start out with a simple form of training. Science-based lifting will get you started. Once you run into a plateau, you stop seeing growth, you got to experiment. Be like, what else could I try? Should I try adding more volume? Let's do that for a couple months. Should I try a different rep range? Let's do that for a couple months. Should I rest longer? Focus more on moving weights? Let's do that for a few months. Should I try to focus more on perfect form and getting a good stretch and a good squeeze with the movement? Let's do that for a few months. And you'll get little bits of growth from each kind of phase, and you'll start to pick up information and data on what your body's responding to, and you just keep tweaking them, and then it's a fun process. You're like, oh, great, I don't need to subscribe to some ideology or one person to tell me that this is, I only do seated rows now because they're more effective, or, lat pull downs or pull-ups are not effective anymore because of the coefficient of friction. Lat pull down, the coefficient of, I saw Mr. freaking Mike video about this. The coefficient of friction on the pulley when you come down limits the resistance profile on the negative part of the movement. Therefore, it's not like, shut up! Just shut up, man. That is not a real factor. Oh, perfect. That's what I need. I knew lat pull downs were stupid. Oh, I'm not trying to be mean. I used to be that person too. That's what's so frustrating about it. Is like I used to be in that camp. That's why it's so hard to watch these like predatory wolves that are just coming in, using the authority of science. I mean, it's sort of getting exposed now. But take this label of science. How can you argue with science? You're an idiot. It's like literally the methodology of science is infallible. It's provable that you're testing, just searching for objective truths. Like, if you don't believe that, you're just delusional. You're a conspiracy theorist. When you look under the hood, you realize it's being manipulated. It's not this pure, untainted science that you thought it was. And these guys come in like, oh, we could make a ton of money here by, putting the label on me as a science-based lifter. People are going to believe everything I say. And then I'll just give direct prescriptions. It's proven to do this, which is what people want to hear. They don't want to hear that you have to keep changing your training. You got to push in different ways at different times to see additional goals. That's too complicated. It's too much work. I don't want to hear that message. So let's not say that. Let's be definitive. Let's say there's specific ways, and let's nitpick on these tiny little details to make people think there's the next thing, the next most effective, efficient thing that needs to be done, and that's what's holding them back from seeing growth. And we'll get millions of views, and we'll sell millions of subscriptions to our apps. And then, meanwhile, our physiques are going to be underwhelming and not progress over the years either. But people aren't going to judge us on that because it's more important of what you know than what results you actually produce. Even though the people we're selling to want results, but we don't have to have good results. Okay, that's enough. Ugh, sound like a freaking hater, but I don't done my best to abstain. It's been probably several months since I've made a video about this stuff, but it's at the end of the day, I'm trying to help you. And you can get mad at me. People always get mad whenever I, provide any pushback to the science guys. People always get mad and attack me like I've insulted their family. And I'm okay with that. You can do that. But there's for a few of you out there, there's just, you're not being told the truth at the end of the day. You're being manipulated for personal monetary gain. And this is hard to watch because I can relate and I've been there. It's frustrating when you start to realize, oh man, I spent like a year doing this or 2 years doing that, and it was all kind of just based on bullshit. You feel robbed and you feel like you've been, duped, and it's not fun. And you're putting work into the gym, and so that's the reason that I get a little spicy and fired up about it. So I hope that maybe convinces some of you guys to, just ultimately take ownership of your training. And if you're consistent, like a lot of people, it's just you're not consistent. You don't train hard. If you don't do those two things, none of these details matter. Once you have those two things, you're hammering away, then you got to stop looking for this is the best way to train. It does not exist. Even for you as an individual, even for me, it changes as you grow. So you got to be open to that, and you got to be, mentally kind of flexible and nimble to make the next adaptation and adjustment. As your body grows, it's going to require additional stimulus to grow more muscle, or different types of stimulus. And you got to find new ways to create a more convincing argument for your body to continue to gain muscle. It doesn't mean everything's going to completely morph and twist, but like as an example for me, it used to be that hitting the arms with a frequency of every other day was perfect for growth. And now at this point, for whatever reason, it's not. And I need that extra day of rest for growth. And it's made a huge difference. So if we're arguing about what's the best frequency to train your arms, see, there's no one best answer. What point in your journey are you? When I first started working out, probably once a week was the right answer. So there's, as you can see, it's like depending on brand new beginner, pretty advanced, or even more experienced, the answer completely changes. So yeah, but science is out here trying to find that right answer, still looking, still searching. It doesn't exist. And I've made this analogy over and over. It's like using a high-powered telescope to study a pebble, point it into space. Like, use science to look in terms of what's going to build muscle. Like, we don't need any more studies. We don't need any more analysis. It's not helping. I think it's counterproductive at this point. If you love science and you're like a science-based lifter person, these dudes, use that to study injuries and to study rehab protocols for people who blow out their knee and they tear all their freaking ligaments in their knee. There's probably more advancements to be made in that, or postural issues, muscle imbalances, dysfunction, things like that. There's more complexity, and I feel like you could actually make progress analyzing and doing studies, and you're not just studying this fluff that doesn't matter. When studying what's going to build more muscle, it's stop. We got it. Okay, Andrei Smay. Just look at him. He's from Russia. Never watched a science-based lifting video in his life, and he's the hugest guy on the planet. Okay, there's your proof. You just got to keep adapting. And he's like, oh, I just listened to what Arnold Schwarzenegger said, and Phil Heath said, and Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman. I analyze what they did, the biggest guys, and I take little bits and pieces of it, and I apply these things, and then I see how my body responds, and I experiment and twist, and I keep an open mind, and I keep finding new ways to create more stress and stimulus. That's it. There's no one right answer. There never will be. Everybody's evolution and journey is different, and trying to seek for the one, sound like a broken record, one best answer and using science as the guise to pursue that is super counterproductive, in my opinion, and it will do nothing but hold back your results. It's like I'm like doing my best to not even look at that stuff. Like I refuse to watch another Mike Israetel video. And this was before his freaking PhD thing blew up. I was like, I would do the reaction. I'm like, this is just such bullshit. And then I realized, okay, this is negative. I'm making every other video about this, or I'm thinking about it a lot. This isn't helping me make progress. I'm just going to ignore this. And as I put it in that bucket, I'm like, I'm done. I can't listen to it. And the Jeremy Ethier video just snuck in there. Oh, I'll watch. I'm like, I'm never watching another one of his videos. I don't want to hear it. I don't even want to think like that. I don't want to be any part of that. So, and I genuinely think that if you really want to make results and you've already been training for a few years, you're past your newbie gains, you should think the same way. I'm not trying to like diminish, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, this isn't accurate. This isn't accurate. And what's this person's interest? What are they trying to do? Make tons of money? Probably. Are they actually trying to help you train and make and see more growth? Probably. Like, I don't think so. I don't want to sound like it. Let's end it there. I don't want to take too many freaking shots. Not that he's ever going to see or anything, but let's just leave it at that. I think you got the message. Go there and make some freaking gains. Arm program, as always, in the description. You don't need it, all the information I give away for free. If you want to support me, if you want a little bit more structure, you want like something that tells you exactly what to do, and like there's a bunch of video courses in there that are more direct and there's no like rambling, so it's all like all the information that I feel I've learned from experimenting, from applying my body to it and seeing what results I get is condensed down to that course. Because when I was 18 just starting out, I would love to have got the information from somebody that's 10 years in the future and achieved a bunch of additional results. Like, what should I look out for? What should I do? What should I not do? But again, you don't need anyone's course at the end of the day. You just need the mentality to, and the habits to be consistent, train hard, and then have an open mind to keep experimenting and listen to what your body does and then keep adapting your training to chase more growth. That's really it. But yeah, if you want to support me and you want like a bit more structure in your training, or somebody that kind of wants like something to tell you exactly what to do, at least as you evolve, there's a number of different courses in there that kind of mimic my progress. There's like a more beginner course. This is like what I was doing more in the beginning, and then my training evolved some. And there's like the Build Massive Arms course is kind of in the middle, and then Armzilla is like more at the end. It's like what I've been doing more recently. And then I do upload some of my individual workouts that I do right now, so you could like copy them exactly if you wanted to. So it's a resource, it's a tool in your kit that you could use if you're really serious about arm growth. But by no way, shape, or form do I want you to think that like this is going to magically get me big arms, or I need this to get big arms. It's like the information in this video that I'm telling you, if you just take this message, that'll probably be way more powerful. If you don't like me or you don't want to listen, if you actually just apply that, it'll benefit you more than my course, anybody's course ever would. Yeah, and I'm also sharing all the things I'm doing in the enhanced world on the website as well. So I make updates and videos talking transparently about those things. And so if you're interested in that topic as well, you can access all those videos there. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.